The year was 2247. Earth, once a bustling and thriving planet, had become a shadow of its former self. After years of intergalactic wars and unchecked technological advancements, humanity found itself struggling to survive. A cataclysmic war between Earth and the invading Xivorian fleet left much of the planet in ruins. Cities were reduced to rubble, ecosystems were decimated, and Earth's population was decimated by the relentless attacks from the alien forces. But amidst the chaos, there was hope. Unknown to the Xivorians, a secret human shelter had been established deep underground, a network of bunkers scattered across the planet, hidden from the prying eyes of the enemy. These shelters were meant to protect the last remnants of humanity, a safe haven where they could rebuild and survive, awaiting the day they could rise again and reclaim their home. One such shelter, known as Facility 19, was located in the remote, forgotten ruins of an old city that had once thrived before the war. Its existence was classified, known only to a few key members of the human resistance. It was supposed to be a place of refuge, but instead, it held an unexpected and mysterious occupant, a young alien girl named Lyra. Lyra was a member of the Xivorian race, an alien species that had invaded Earth and other nearby worlds in a bid for dominance. But unlike most of her people, she wasn't driven by a desire for conquest or destruction. Lyra had arrived on Earth under the guise of a soldier, part of the Xivorian force sent to oversee the occupation. However, after witnessing the brutality and devastation inflicted upon the planet's inhabitants, she became disillusioned with the invasion. Lyra's sense of guilt weighed heavily on her, especially after watching countless innocent lives lost. She had seen the horrors of war and realized she couldn't participate in it any longer. As the Xivorians began their retreat, leaving behind only ruins, Lyra made a decision. She would hide. She deserted her people and fled, seeking refuge in the human shelter, hoping they would not find her, and hoping she could somehow make up for her role in the destruction of Earth. She found Facility 19 by chance, hidden within the ruins of an old human city. It was there that Lyra made her home, living in the shadows, staying out of sight of the humans who might see her as an enemy. She learned about Earth from the remnants of human technology stored within the shelter. Old books, recordings, and data files detailing the rich history of Earth before the war. Lyra grew to understand the human spirit, their resilience, their capacity for hope, and their desire to rebuild. She studied them from the safety of the shelter, dreaming of a world where she might be accepted. Years passed, and Lyra kept herself hidden, a ghost in the shadows. The war ended, but humanity remained scattered and broken, a mere fraction of its former self. The human resistance that had once fought valiantly was no more, leaving Earth in a state of uncertainty and silence. And then, one day, the silence was broken. A lone human, a man named Ethan Walker, arrived at Facility 19, the first person to enter the shelter in decades. He had been a part of the human resistance, fighting in the final battles of the war, and now he was seeking answers. Having heard rumors of a hidden sanctuary, he set out to find it, hoping to find others and possibly rebuild humanity's future. But as Ethan entered the facility, he was unaware of the secret Lyra had kept for so long. Lyra heard him. She was hidden deep within the facility, in the heart of the shelter, but she knew someone had arrived. She could hear the echoes of footsteps on the concrete floors. The moment she realized he wasn't a Xivorian soldier, but a human, she froze. Her instinct screamed for her to remain hidden, to stay away from him. She had spent so many years in isolation, avoiding human contact at all costs. But now, for the first time, there was a human in front of her. Fear gripped her heart as she debated what to do. If he discovered her, he might be angry or frightened. After all, she had once been part of the enemy. She was a deserter, a traitor to her own kind, and the humans would never trust her. But she couldn't leave. The shelter had become her sanctuary, and for once in her life, she felt safe. Ethan moved through the corridors of the shelter, marveling at the technology that had once been used to protect humanity. As he walked, he noticed something strange. Footprints, not of dust, but of a living being. Someone had been here. His heart raced as he followed the tracks deeper into the shelter. He couldn't help but feel that he wasn't alone. Then, as he turned a corner, he came face to face with her. Lyra stood there, her delicate, alien features illuminated by the dim light from the facility. Her glowing eyes met his, filled with both fear and a strange sense of relief. She hadn't expected to be found, and yet, here she was, standing before the one person she had spent years hiding from. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The alien woman in front of him was not what he had expected. She was not the monster, the invader, the enemy. There was something vulnerable in her eyes, something that made him pause. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, Lyra took a cautious step forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want this. I didn't want to hurt you." Ethan blinked, his mind racing. "You were part of the invasion?" She nodded. "I was, but I'm not anymore. I couldn't watch it. I couldn't be part of it." Ethan's grip on his blaster relaxed slightly as he processed her words. "You've been hiding all this time? From your own people?" "From everyone," she said softly. "I've lived in the shadows, hoping to make amends." A long silence followed. Ethan looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw the sorrow in her expression. For the first time, he wondered if maybe there was more to her story. Maybe there was more to her than the war. "I won't hurt you," he said, lowering his weapon. "But why didn't you leave? Why stay here?" Lyra's gaze softened, her eyes filled with a deep sadness. "Because this is the only place I could be safe. I didn't know if you would accept me. But now that you're here, maybe there's a chance." Ethan studied her for a moment, his mind working through the conflict within him. Then he nodded slowly. "Maybe there is." From that day on, Ethan and Lyra forged an unlikely alliance. Together, they would rebuild what had been lost and find a way to heal the scars of war. Lyra, the last of the Xivorians on Earth, had hidden from the very people she had once fought against, but now, with Ethan, she would finally find her place in a world that had been broken by her own kind. And, in the process, she would teach Ethan that sometimes the greatest strength is not in the fight, but in the courage to change.